All right, I get 7 o'clock.
Good.
Let's kick this off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Chelmsford Conservation Commission meeting. I'm the chairman, Chris Garahan. We welcome you. This meeting is being recorded and also filmed by the Chelmsford Telemedia organization. So the first item we have on our agenda is our open session citizen concerns. We have an item here, Chris Nitchie and Tetra Tech Inc. request for emergency certificate of immediate response action at 20 Boston Road. Let's hear from our agent. Mr. Agent, anything to report on this one?
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, yeah,
This part of the hearing.
let the record show that Peter Spahn is recusing himself from this matter. So he'll step aside for a moment. All right.
Okay, I'll just briefly give some background, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Anici. So I think there probably are members of the commission who recall this same matter. There was a large oil tank that was removed from the parking area that's adjacent, and because I guess there were plumes, oil sheen seen in the stream that's close by. You can actually, if you look up on the screen, that I believe the oil tank was removed up from somewhere up in here. That's
on the left-hand side behind the build stop.
Oh, up here. Okay, up there. So, but I guess that turned out not to solve the problem. That even with the oil tank gone, the sheen is still seen in the stream coming out of the culvert here, and so there's some additional work that still needs to be done to track down the source. So I did do a site visit.
I'm sorry, Dave, just to interrupt, can you orient? I'm not oriented here on this picture.
Maybe, Mr. Nitchie, you want to come up? Maybe you can even point it right out up at the screen. I'd like to come right up, sir.
So this is 18 to 20 Boston Road. You know where that is?
Yeah.
So
What am I-
Between the liquor store and Adiamos.
This is the liquor store on Summer Street.
Okay.
This is, and I keep calling it the old Stop and Shop, but what's in there now?
Purity.
There's-
Well, the old Purity, yeah.
I see, it's
The old
behind,
Purity, yeah.
so it's
Yes.
behind
Yes.
there.
yes.
So it's behind there.
Got it, okay.
There's a drainage easement that comes through this way,
Okay.
and there's a head wall with an outfall, and an open swale that leads up to the Beaver Brook, which is right up here.
No,
Yep.
okay, thank
So-
you.
Sorry, I should have had a locus map. So anyway, I did a quick site visit with Mr. Nishi, and he gave me a work description of what needs to be done. I think with regard to the Conservation Commission's concerns, I think that this can be handled through, and I asked for DEP's advice on this. They recommended doing it through an emergency certification, and which can still have conditions. I think the main condition here would be to install the erosion control as in this area right here. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Chris, and he
Great,
can go
okay,
over
so
more
Mr.
detail.
Nitchie, over to you, sir.
Sure. So a little bit more of the background here. The DEP and the Chelmsford Fire Department were actually involved in this initially. There was citizen complaint. There was an oil odor and a slight sheen, minor sheen on the swale. No one really knew where it was coming from. We actually spent many months. The DEP spent several months monitoring this and saying, "Oh, it looks really minor." At first, they really thought it was something that was going to go away on its own. It didn't. They approached Win Stanley as the property owner here and said, "Hey, we think this might be coming from your property. We'd like you to investigate it a little bit further." Through those investigations, we actually could not find anything in any records of an underground storage tank on this property. We don't know how old it was. We don't know who installed it. But we were, through a GPR survey, able to identify an underground storage tank and remove it. So
How did you find it?
a ground penetrating radar. We brought a surveyor out. We were honestly, through record searches, we were at a loss. We were thinking it might have been from the gas stations that are, a
And you were
quarter mile
doing,
up.
you did that how many years after it was first discovered?
No, the GPR survey was probably 9 to 15 months after it was discovered. We went through records research. We went back and forth a few times to try and just to try and look at what could be causing this. We installed some monitoring wells to see if there was a groundwater issue and a plume coming towards it. We actually investigated this a little bit further up this utility corridor to see if maybe it was following the utilities around. It is a really, really minor sheen. This is not an issue that, at this point, without the tank's been removed, it's not something that the average person would notice. But we do have an MCP release tracking number for this, and the MCP dictates that you can't close out a site with a sheen on surface water. There's no pathway for closure there. So we have groundwater data that says that we are approaching drinking water standards. So the groundwater is impacted, but very minimally. We have soil data that indicates we could pass a risk assessment. The big thing that's holding us up is that when we see heavy precipitation, we still see a real minor sheen, and there's just we have to address that. There's no way for us to get
The original
out.
product you found, you identified that. Is this product the same thing, or is it different?
It appears to be the same thing. We have not identified an alternative source. It does appear to be heavily weathered diesel. It's diesel that it looks like diesel that's probably been in the environment for many decades.
All right. So let's see what we got for commission questions. We'll start right here with John first, work our way around the horn.
Is there any way this could be like a runoff from the parking lots?
That was
You know, all the oil drippings on all the parking lots that are in the area?
that was one of our initial theories, and it's not that much more substantial than a sheen you might see from runoff in a parking lot, but we're not seeing it coming out of the outfall. We're seeing it emerging from the ground under the head wall, under or through the head wall. So if it was coming out with the stormwater,
Right.
that would probably be a
Okay.
theory that we would roll with, and there is an exemption in the MCP for a sheen that's caused by surface water. It does not appear that this is where it's coming from. The best theory that we have going right now is that when the tank released, or when the tank had the majority of the oil released from the tank, it migrated this way. Much of it probably went downstream and was never captured. Some of it got hung up either in the utilities
Yep.
or in the stone pack or sand behind the head wall, and it's just stuck there. So there's a pocket of, who knows, 5, 10, 50 gallons of oil stuck in this location with no place to go. Every time it rains, 10 drops come out every couple of minutes, and it creates this little pretty sheen.
Yeah, 1 cup of oil will give you a sheen to cover this room.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're not talking about much.
How big was the tank?
2,000 gallons.
2,000?
2,000 gallons, your report says.
It says 2,000?
That's what it says.
Thank you.
See, somebody read it.
Anything, John?
No, I
Appreciate it.
mean,
I think Chris, that was back in 2019 that we pulled the tank out.
2019 that we pulled it out, yes.
Right. There were little pinholes at the bottom of the tank. And then the soils around it have all tested clean.
Anything more, John?
no.
Okay, good. Dave,
Yeah.
over to you.
Is there any chance this oil is from the gasoline spill in the center of the town 25 years ago?
So that was a theory that we looked into. That was a fairly significant spill that migrated through utilities. We weren't able to find any evidence that it migrated through this utility corridor. We haven't seen any evidence of oil or petroleum in our exterior wells. We're only really seeing it, in the wells between where the UST was and the swale. So we have no reason to believe that it was from that.
How from when you did, two questions. One is, why did it take you so long to discover the tank when the state couldn't? There was the state not looking for anything?
Our typical course when we investigate these things is to look at paper records. It's to look,
Yeah, but didn't the state look at those? The state told you it was a
Everyone did.
minor spill and not to worry about it, right?
initially they did. Actually, initially, they
And it
didn't-
wasn't until you did more work that they decided maybe it was worse than they thought.
initially the state did not even contact Win Stanley about it.
Yeah.
We had to look through their records, and they said, this doesn't look like a big deal, we will track it. They did investigate the parking lot, they investigated catch basins to see if there had been a minor car accident or something like that.
Do you know how old the tank was?
We do not.
You don't know. There's nothing on the tank itself.
We were unable to find any records of the installation of this tank. or
Dave,
use
you
of it.
weren't here, but I don't know if you went through the record. None of us, well, Chris and I were here. Do you remember this coming to our attention originally? Would it have come to our it would have come to our attention when Win Stanley was building out the site,
Yeah.
probably, right?
Gary Ryan agrees with that. He has pulled all his records and he was adamant about,
The reason I'm asking the question is, I'm surprised, let's assume for the moment, it did come to conservation back at the outset. I'm surprised, I don't remember there being any subsequent reporting of what was going on in this site. Not a single update. And to me, this is potentially pretty serious. And I'm trying to understand, why wasn't the Conservation Commission kept appraised of what was going on to fix the situation? I mean, Dave, you're new. Chris and I were on it. I don't remember
Nothing.
subsequent
I agree,
reporting.
Dave, I agree. Nothing.
And I'm sure you don't. Although your correspondence would have been between yourselves and the state.
So
Who would have been
typically-
obligated to notify the
So
Conservation Commission?
typically with an underground storage tank removal, we notify the fire chief. And we get.
So should he have told, I'm trying to see,
That
trying-
would, that would
I
be,
don't wanna
that would be
blame
an internal
anybody.
thing, yeah, that would be an internal thing within the town. Some towns have policies about.
I mean,
what-
to me, it's,
That level of communication.
fortunately, has not turned out to be particularly damaging. It could have been. The fact that we were left out of the loop, not that we would have been any smarter in fixing the problem than you guys were, but we could have brought a perspective that might have made some difference, and I don't know. And that's a concern of mine. How long is it gonna take to fix, or is it fixed?
So our proposal is to come in here and, we've installed these wells. We've seen in TT12 and TT6 are the only wells where we've seen any sheen on the groundwater. But those are as close to the head wall as we can get because of the positioning of the drill
Whereabouts
rig.
in there was the tank? Can you put?
The tank was here.
Because I recall that being a big hole in the ground between Lincoln and
So,
Adiamo.
so the
Is there still a big hole in the
The
ground?
surface
that flows
elevation-
out to Beaver Brook?
The surface
Essentially, yeah.
elevation between here and the swale, it's about a 10-foot drop.
Yeah, okay.
But that was
So-
all open space going back to the wetlands. That
It
was
still is.
That was
No, it's
filled.
paved. It was
No, I don't
filled.
think so.
Yes, it was. It was paved because John wanted that, a purity wanted that to back their trucks in.
Right.
and in the back of the plaza where Purity Supreme was, used to come out further than what is existing today.
Okay.
The backside during the redevelopment was
Right.
taken off. So the
Right, that's
parking
right.
area was expanded.
Right.
And that whole area was done up, and an underground storage tank never was revealed.
And Fred, I believe the drainage utilities that were installed here, they look new. I believe those were installed by you guys, right? So
Excuse me, who are you guys?
this is Fran from Win Stanley.
Oh, okay.
I
Welcome.
work
Okay.
So when they redeveloped the property, they did put a drainage utility line in, the length of this parking lot. It's amazing. It was just, either dumb luck or dumb poor luck that they didn't discover this tank or excavate right through it. But no one knew it was there, so they didn't.
Mark, over you?
When you did the tank, you remediated all the soils and it's clean, correct?
Correct. We removed, I believe, about a truck of soil. I'd check our report to confirm that, but we did remove some impacted soil. There was not a lot of impacted soil. It looked like it looked like the release had happened a long
Did
time
anybody
ago.
want a 21E done?
A 21E was done, I would assume, when Win Stanley purchased the property.
But they wouldn't look back there, because
Most of the records research that we did is very similar to a 21E. When we were looking for evidence of the tank, we mined the same resources that we would for a 21E. And again, we just haven't seen any records of this. There was a certain era when tanks were installed and the records weren't that great.
You remember? Lincoln? When was their building built? I have no
John
idea.
Harrington built that.
Huh?
John Harrington built that.
I know. Do you know when?
I'm gonna guess is around late 80s.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I think the building says 1985 or something
Yeah,
like that.
mid
Oh,
'80s.
yeah, that would be after Purity.
Because you go in there.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah,
the
Purity was,
Because Purity expanded
Purity.
into his
The
building.
what, the grocery cart?
Remember it was in
Right.
between?
Down the street?
Yeah. All right, we'll get enough.
I just was wondering if maybe John had seen anything when he built it. Because notice that parking lot doesn't go straight back. It kind of curves around.
Yeah, and the property line is
Yeah.
around where the edge of John's parking lot is. Actually, I think it may even be somewhere in the middle of the easement. But
That's all I got.
Well, it's all, Mark. Carl? Questions, comments?
So I'm sorry, I'm not following something. What action have you taken, or what action are you planning?
So what we're planning to do is to excavate along the backside of the head wall to see if we can expose whatever pocket of oil might be in there and remove it either with a vacuum truck. We would consider installing a monitoring well if we needed to, so that way we have access to it, because we can't drill that close to the head wall.
I understand it. Your other monitoring wells aren't showing anything, so it's just those specific.
So we haven't seen any sheen or any free-phase oil on any monitoring wells except for 6 and 12. They're tucked right in back here behind the wall. We can't guarantee, there's no guarantees, but the best evidence that we have says that there's a pocket somewhere in here, and the best approach we have for it is to go after it with an excavation.
Okay, that's all.
David, anything more?
Just a couple of things. So I would certainly recommend the issuance of the emergency certification, which is only good for 60 days. But I think, Chris, you've indicated that you don't think the work will take any longer than that.
I'm expecting this to take approximately a week. I'm expecting the excavation to take a day, and then, once we have it open, we go over in the IRA plan modification a couple of different options that we might use for removing impacted soil, free-phase oil, just getting out of there what we need to, and then backfill.
Okay. So I think just a couple of conditions. I think installation of the erosion control. Let me know.
Sure.
I might come over and take a quick look at it, and then just providing the commission with the final report.
Sure.
Then the other thing, I know I've spoken to a couple commission members. There are monitoring wells in a number of locations along Beaver Brook, and I've spoken to a couple of commission members about maybe building a database of the information, the data that's collected from these monitoring wells.
Sure.
So I assume that the monitoring wells will stay in for a long, long time.
They
after
will.
this.
They will stay installed at least until we are able to submit a permanent solution statement to the Mass DEP and close out the file on this.
Any
That
idea how
would
long?
take a minimum of a year of quarterly monitoring.
Okay.
In most circumstances, after we finish this exercise. So we
would-
could discuss leaving them in longer. There's nothing prohibiting us from leaving them in longer, but
Okay.
they do need to be maintained or properly removed at some point.
Would you, so they're sampled quarterly?
We're currently sampling them quarterly, yes.
Okay, so would you be able to provide those quarterly reports or the reports on the results of the sampling, to the commission?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, all of that goes into our reports to the state. That's all public record, and we can provide you guys a copy, so
Okay.
that way you don't have to fish through the reports.
Okay, so that should probably go in the,
I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Mike.
I just had a question on when you're doing this, you're obviously gonna have to de-water. Is this,
So the groundwater elevation is approximately the same elevation as the water table, or as the surface water. And our expectation is that the oil is going to be right at the top of the groundwater. So our goal is to excavate down to the top of the groundwater. We may remove some wet soil. We may pump some impacted groundwater or diesel if we find it, diesel oil if we find it. But we don't intend to de-water to the extent that we would discharge anything. Anything we pump, we would pump into a vacuum truck and haul it off.
Okay.
Good. Good. David, anything more? All right, so we need a motion then for certificate.
You're gonna keep that open for fire traffic, correct? When you do the work?
Yes, nothing we're doing should block
It's not
fire
very
traffic.
wide back there to begin with.
I'm expecting we'll take up a couple parking spots here and excavate from the Harrington side. I believe we need to approach Mr. Harrington about that, but that looks like the easiest and most convenient way.
That's
But
probably-
we wouldn't have any
Yep,
reason to
fine.
block fire access.
All right, good. Well, we need to take a vote. We need a motion for an emergency certificate. That would have some conditions for erosion control, as listed by David. We want our agent to be notified before the work starts, so he can be present. We're looking for quarterly reports. And did I miss anything?
And just the final report.
And the
of-
final
of
report,
The
yes.
IRA.
Final report. So if we can have a motion to that extent?
So move.
Moved by Mr. McLaughlin, seconded
Second.
by? We got a second by Mark on that. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous with a note that we had a recusal from Peter Spahn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Do we need anything more on here?
Now moving on
Say
the
18,
agenda
20
to
bucks.
regulatory hearings. We have a request for determination of applicability filed by the Town of Chelmsford DPW. This relates to Campers Trail. Trevor Collins from our Town of Chelmsford DPW is representing the applicant. Trevor, why don't you come forward and tell us what you'd like to do?
Needs to read the hearing notice.
Oh, hold it, 1 second. We've got a legal notice.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023, at 7 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner Town of Chelmsford for proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at Campers Trail Road right-of-way. The project entails installation of 2 new leaching catch basins with underdrains. Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks very much. All right, Trevor, an overview for the commission if you could.
Yeah, so Campers Trail is one of 9 or 10 roadways that we're fully reclaiming and paving this year in the town of Chelmsford. And when we reclaim, we adjust grades to provide proper drainage and pitch on the roadway. So we fix puddling that might occur and make sure water gets to catch basins where they're already installed. On Campers Trail, there is absolutely no drainage. Half the street drains down to Coolidge Street, and then the other half, which is the circle we see around this pond, pretty much just runs off into the pond, off the side of the roadway. So what we propose to do is obviously, in order to make the grades work, we have some low points, which are where those 2 leaching catch basins are. We're looking to capture the runoff in those 2 leaching basins, and it will be treated in those leaching basins before it discharges through groundwater into the pond. That's what we're looking to do here, and by adding these leaching basins, you're treating the water before it infiltrates that pond, but also during the winter season when it would puddle and freeze there, we're going to extend the life of the asphalt there. So there's many advantages to adding them, and we're not creating any new point discharges because it's all, water's all getting captured in these leaching basins and then just infiltrating out through the ground and then into the pond.
All right, thanks for the overview. Appreciate it. Let's see if the commission has some questions. We'll start again from the left here. John? Thanks, Dave.
How deep are these catch basins gonna be?
They're going to be approximately 8 feet deep. So these leaching basins are gonna have a 4-foot sump to be able to treat the water and catch all your solids and whatnot. And then 3 feet will be your leaching part of the catch basin, where what we call fingers, which is just, perforated pipe that extend out each way on either side of the basin, that water will flow through and leach out, on either side of the catch basin. So then with that and the, your frame and cover, it's about 8 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you can see, so the leaching basin, it doesn't show the sump on this picture, but there will be a sump that will be used in this scenario here. But it's completely wrapped in geotextile fabric and then stoned, which helps hold enough water for, for a storm. And then we use the pipe as well to hold additional water when it rains heavy. And the pipe is also wrapped in fabric and stone as well.
Okay.
So suspended, dirt surrounding the pipes just don't leak into the basin and dirty it up that way. It's the only way dirt comes into the basin is what's falling through that frame and grate.
How big an excavation are you talking?
It's probably gonna be 8 foot by 8 foot. That's how big that leaching basin hole is gonna be, and that's how much they're gonna stone. And then, you got your fingers on either side. Here, we got 18-inch perforated pipe coming out. In one area, it's a total of 40 feet. In another area, it's a total of 90 feet.
So this is gonna be fast,
This is gonna be, like, construction-wise,
fast.
when it leaches.
Construction. No, construction-wise.
Uh,
Dig and put it right in?
Yeah, I imagine, the contractor would be able to set the structure in one day, and then the next day they run the pipes, and then it's done.
Okay. No, I don't, they definitely need something like that there, so I don't see a problem with it. Just don't let stuff run into the pond.
That's what we're trying to
That's-
prevent. Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand
So we're
that.
trying to treat it before it gets there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, John. Peter?
Hi, Trevor. Yeah, just a quick question. And I know we looked at the site the other day, so forgive me.
Yep.
How much of that roadway that circles the pond will drain into these catch basins? In other words, how much of that roadway will there continue to be surface runoff from the roadway into the pond for the areas that are not low, or are you going to regrade the whole thing?
So the water from approximately here down runs down here, and there's catch basins down
Yeah.
here that it will run to the drainage system along Groton Road here. And then everything this way is all pitched and headed to these two catch basins. So everything in the roadway is pitched towards these two,
Yeah, I thought that would be the answer. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Peter. Good, David.
That pond is wet all year now?
Last year was completely dry, and I walked across it.
Is
That's
it-
granted,
do you
that
know
was
if it's
very dry.
Does it normally dry out once a year, do you know?
I was only here last summer, so I have no
Yeah.
idea. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
I take it was was it created in order to address the runoff situation in the neighborhood originally before we had catch basins? Probably.
I also, yeah.
What I'm trying, what do you think's gonna happen to the pond when your catch basins work?
It'll be cleaner.
It'll be.
But is the pond gonna go away?
No.
No, because it's just taking that same water that would flow into the pond over,
Right, and the
the
overflow,
10-foot
right,
strip of
right.
land, taking it and capturing it, and then it's going to infiltrate to the same pond just through the
But
ground.
all the water infiltrates, well, as you said, the right-hand side infiltrates to Freeman Lake.
Eventually, yes. But yeah, I'm not like taking the water out of the pond.
Is
with-
this an
by putting-
accepted street?
Campers Trail, yes.
Do the homeowners own to the middle of the pond?
The middle of the pond is private. We do not own it.
So the town owns it? Oh, someone
No,
else?
no, the owners, yeah, the
The
owners.
owners own it, so
I don't know who owns it.
it's not the town.
The owners,
No.
private ownership, Dave.
That's why I couldn't create a discharge point in it directly,
all
but
acres.
we're allowed to,
Good question, Dave.
leach.
All right, moving on to Mark.
It looks like something has to be done. It looks like a reasonable plan. It's common sense to do it. Just do it.
Good, all right, good. Carl, anything more? Good, David, anything?
Just a question, Trevor. So what is the type and frequency of maintenance that's done on these catch basins?
These will be put on our stormwater list, and it'll be cleaned twice a year, and maintained that way, along with all the other basins in town, you know. And the roadway will be swept approximately twice a year as well, like the other roads, so.
So I think this is certainly a definite improvement, and I think it can be approved with a negative determination with conditions, and the conditions that I would recommend would giving me at least 48 hours advance notice, and I think most of these conditions will apply to the next two RDAs, but anyway, 48 hours advance notice. And to the maximum, this is probably less applicable to this project, but to the maximum extent practicable, perform work at low or no flow conditions. Again, that probably doesn't apply to this one. Remove all non-reused excavated material same day, which is not going to be a problem since it's going to be a 2J job at most. And then just stabilize any disturbed slopes in the buffer zone with riprap. And we talked about
Yep.
these things
Yep.
at the site visit. So,
All right, very good. Dave, question?
Yeah. Since the owners own to the middle of the pond, do you need their approval to do this work?
Nope. I'm all within my right-of-way. The town's right-of-way, sorry.
Oh, the right-of-way on Camper's Trail?
Yeah, all this work is.
Not gonna do any work in the
no,
pond?
this is an RDA.
David, does this pond on the open space master plan as a pocket park?
I don't think so, no. I mean,
Should it be?
well, it's privately owned. So,
I mean, is there
Wait.
some,
I guess,
they just said they don't, but they don't maintain it. Okay.
well, we can certainly look into that.
The private owner does maintain that pond really well. There's not weed growth around it or anything, so
Good.
Good.
good for him, but yeah.
No, it's something that all the homeowners should benefit from.
Oh.
As opposed to, and that's why I said, could it be a pocket park? Anyhow.
So I presume that the pond was dug when this subdivision was,
I would assume so
Well,
too.
which came first?
who knows?
I moved the issue, we got, he's got some special oh, you.
Yeah, well,
you
let's,
wanna get-
yeah, let's
go ahead.
just before we get the motion, just, it is a public hearing, so if anybody from the public has any questions or comments, please raise your hand, let me know. All right, no public input. All right, back over to Dave for a motion here for a negative determination.
First to close the hearing.
I move we close the hearing.
I second it.
Okay, all those in favor of closing the hearing? All right, unanimous. All
This
right,
is,
Dave?
this is an RDA.
Yes.
I
This
move
would be
we,
-3.
yeah, I move we approve this application as a -3 on the RDA.
With the conditions elucidated by our agent. So David, the motion, do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second.
Oh, Carl. Just beat you by a hair. All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right, great. So
Dave,
that one's down.
I thought we only put special conditions on notices of intent.
No, you can do that with determinations.
Okay.
I mean, these are actually pretty standard conditions.
I just don't like notices, I don't like these things. All right.
All right, well, that's RDA number one request. Second one we have up, again, from Trevor Collins, request for determination of applicability with respect to Pine Hill Road. And we have a legal notice for the record.
Can I just say all the same stuff except proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at Pine Hill Road right-of-way. The project entails installation of a new catch basin and under drain, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, the legal notice has been entered. And then back over to Trevor for an overview.
All right, I'm gonna come over to this screen so I can explain this one a little better. So currently, the situation that we have out here is that there's a catch basin on the south side of this roadway in this corner that connects to this wetland area, but then discharges out to this wetland area. So water, flows down here, gathers here, flows through the pipe to this catch basin, and then discharges all the way out here. The problem that we're having out here is that there's also sewer manholes here, and when they put in the sewer, the groundwater is infiltrating to the sewer line and actually coming out of the top of our sewer frame and cover. And there's this part of the roadway is constantly wet because groundwater is just flowing out up through it, and because of that, in the winter, everything pops and freezes and pops, and so it's really deteriorated here. So what we want to do is we want to capture this groundwater before it hits the sewer line trench, and by putting in this approximately 300 foot under drain here. And so that's just going to be your perforated pipe in stone, wrapped in fabric, that instead of discharging water, it's going to capture the water, run it down to this catch basin that we'd like to put on this side of the roadway that will connect into the existing lines that we have and discharge through the same system. So in reality, what we're doing is all the water that's currently come to this catch basin will now be captured through this proposed under drain and this catch basin as well. Just trying to prevent that water coming up through the sewer line and causing issues on the roadway. As you guys know, ice causes accidents and things like that, so during the winter. So that's what we're looking to do.
Okay, great, thanks for the overview. Let's maybe start down this end. Carl, any questions, comments?
Is there a time frame that, does it matter when you do this? David, you mentioned on the conditions on the last one.
Yeah, I think for this kind of work is much less of an issue when it's done. I mean, it probably doesn't hurt to do it, when it's drier, but I don't think that that's critical. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the water that's located right here. I mean, it's maybe what I saw foot deep at its deepest part. It doesn't stand that long and flows right to the pipe.
So how confident are you that this will solve the problem?
I'm pretty confident. Things like this I've installed time and time again when I'm directly on ledge trying to capture water before it flows out of the sides and everything. So I've seen it used many times, but I cannot guarantee it, unfortunately. But I'm pretty confident. even adding that catch basin will do something too, because it will capture road water before. Right now, it just kind of runs off the side there into that pond on the north side, and then discharges through the pipe. So even that will help treat water too. So,
And how long? You said the last project was maybe 3 days or something. What do you see here?
This one I probably see, the last project I see is roughly 2 days per basin. This one I probably see as more three, maybe 4 days, depending on if there's issues with running into utility problems or ledge in the roadway. But I've done my investigating and we should be all set. I'm thinking they'll install about 150 feet of pipe a day, and then also that catch basin in 1 day and make the connections. So, like we said, we'll how the contractor works is, since they have to bring in new stone to wrap everything in, they haul that existing material right off and then place the new material right in, and things don't get left on the site.
Thanks, Carl. Mark?
This is running on top of the sewer line, the existing sewer line, or adjacent to it?
It's going to be, so the sewer line runs down the middle of the road. This is running on the north side of the roadway, so at the edge of roadway. So
10 feet away? Is that 12 feet away?
it's probably 10, 12 feet away. That roadway is 25 feet wide, so yeah, 10, 12 feet away.
No danger if the sewer line by any chance fails, that this is gonna pick it up and travel sewage down to the brook?
No, because right now the way things flow is from up here down this way.
That's it.
Okay, good. Dave?
When on your calendar is this work going to start?
This work will start in the summer when we award the project.
This summer.
Yeah, so this is gonna happen this summer.
Where on Pine Hill Road is the coolest property?
That's right. Just
You aware the coolest property is for sale?
Yes, I am.
So it could be a development in there which would require a lot of work in the streets.
Understood. I
Maybe,
mean,
I wouldn't have you
the-
wait, but maybe the developer could do it for you.
it's not sold yet.
No, it's not sold
Not
yet,
sold
I
yet.
understand, that's why I wanted to know when you're gonna, but you're aware that that piece of property is under consideration for
yeah,
sale.
yeah, and, I'm doing a lot more grade changes on this roadway in that area, and I don't want them to build a plan to my old road.
Thank you.
Which will just screw up all my grades on this road, which is gonna fix a lot of puddling on that road.
You're not gonna put a lot more water into that wetlands, are you?
It's gonna be the same water that goes there anyways.
Historically, that wetlands has been a problem. It gets a lot bigger than it is of late.
Oh, really? Okay.
And there's no place for it to go, really. I don't think it goes under Hunt Road, and it certainly doesn't go under 495 anyhow.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, that was a dug pond anyway. That was dug anyways.
Yeah, no,
Isn't
the
irrigation?
farmer's
Farm
pond,
pond, yeah,
Yeah,
farm
farm
pond, yeah,
pond.
yeah.
It wasn't illegal.
Those are legal.
I said it wasn't illegal.
No, I didn't say it was illegal.
No, I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with you.
I didn't say it was illegal.
I said it was a
I said
farmer's,
it's a dug pond.
I said it was
it's
a
an
farmer's
irrigation
pond,
pond.
and it was fine.
Vivian, can you reflect in the minutes, these guys actually agree with each other?
Duly noted, they've been drinking again.
Oh, is that-
All right, Peter, over to you.
No questions. Thank you.
Hard to talk to Peter, isn't it?
No, I'm good with that.
John? You're good. All right, good, good. Mr. Agent?
So just got a couple of things to add, although Trevor already mentioned that, yeah, this catch basin will actually collect surface water as well that's running down the road and currently going into the pond. So that will certainly improve that wetland. Plus, this is also going to be a 4-foot deep sump, the catch basin. So that will then also improve the quality of the water flowing down into the wetland where it ultimately ends
Yeah,
up.
there's a lot of surface water ends up in western nurseries, which will probably not be there when that project's finished.
Okay.
Hopefully. So, again, same recommendation for a negative determination with the same conditions.
Very good, good. Let's see, and again, just a public hearing, so if anybody in the public has any comments or questions, just raise your hand, give us your name and address. No public input then, so we're ready then for a motion.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Yes, sir. And seconded by?
All right.
It's Mark on the second. All those in favor, aye. Unanimous. Hearing's closed, and now we need a motion for a negative determination.
I move that under the request for determination of applicability for Town of Chelmsford DPW for project on Pine Hill Road, we issue a -3 determination.
Okay, with our conditions enunciated by our agent. And do we have a second on Dave's motion?
Second.
All right, Carl on the second.
Never look this way.
No. You know, he said the same thing the last meeting, too. He was aghast. All right, I'm going to look down the next one down your way. We had the second by Mark, or was it Carl? Carl? All right, now you're confusing me.
I'll
All
jump
right.
right in on that one.
All right, okay. Vivian, we square on who made the motion? Good, all right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, so you're all set.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.
And then the next up on the agenda is a request for determination of applicability. This is a continuation from March 28th, 2023, so there's no need for a legal notice at this point in time. Town of Chelmsford, DPW, several locations. We have Anthony Rapucci from our Town of Chelmsford, DPW, representing the applicant. Anthony, please come forward.
Good evening, everybody. So I left here last time with a couple of questions that you were looking for. One of which was the risk factor that was used for through Weston Sampson while making determinations across the stormwater management plan. There's numerous categories. There's about 11 of them. I needed my laptop as I couldn't remember them all. It begins with the overall condition of 5 being the worst and 1 being the best, impact to public health and safety, potential for property damage, cost of deferred maintenance, number of people impacted, impacts to traffic, impacts on town development, and then from those scores, they come up with the public health and safety, property damage, cost of deferred maintenance factors, number of people, impact factor. And when you consider all of those, they take a likelihood of failure, a consequence factor, along with the sum of the weights for everything else that was considered, and that's where the risk factor comes from. And so based on that risk factor is where they took the highest score. I believe the highest was 190.5, and it works its way down through I think 33 or so was the lowest. Amongst those, you had asked a question about culvert-25 on Graniteville Road. That is scored at a 90, which was about 57th on the list. So it is outside of the top 50 for the risk factor.
That was out in 31, I think.
Fiscal year 31. And with that project, it had an initial estimate in 2020 of about $110,000. We had a similar project that you had approved on Dunshire Culvert a couple years ago. That same cost was $105,000 through this report. That went out to bid and was awarded last year for $370,000. So my rough construction estimate for the specific culvert on Graniteville Road would be between $450,000 and $500,000, as it's 70 feet long, while Dunshire is only about 45 feet. That's not including engineering factors or fees that would be associated with that. Those are just purely construction costs. That's why if you look through the report, you'll see that some higher risk factors get dropped on lower years, as there was an overall cost assessment assigned with it. So outside of it being 57th for the risk factor, it also has a high cost. And because of that, it ended up sliding farther down the list according to that. I think those were the main questions that we guys were looking for. Do you have any other questions or anything else that I could clear up for you guys?
Commissioners, any questions from anybody as follow-up? All right, Dave?
You reevaluate these every year?
We don't reevaluate them every year. So what happened is when we were looking at this back in November, we then reevaluated through the fiscal years. So we haven't looked back or looked through fiscal year 20.
When would we expect to see you back at us with a similar list?
So when these are completed, so next year presumably would be coming back with our fiscal year 24. We'd look at it in November.
And you push everything out a year or two.
Well, we're trying to work our way down the list essentially, and
But
so
you're going to add stuff at the end as it comes up, I would think. No.
it would depend on the considerable risk or what we come across. If it's an emergency, it would actually jump to the top of the list.
Right. I agree.
Right. Yeah. But so yes, so that fiscal year 31 could be pushed back if we receive significant more funding or more grant opportunities. We might actually be able to move things forward. It could depend. So it's not a fluid list, but it is a playbook that we're using, and we're trying to use that to make the best decisions that we can with the materials or the costs that we have on hand.
All right, thanks, Anthony. That's good. All right, could we have then a motion to approve with a negative determination?
I have a couple things to say.
Or actually, we need to close the hearing, too. Yeah, David, first.
Okay, so we spent 5 hours last Tuesday.
5 hours?
5 hours, yeah.
Wow.
Visiting just about all of these sites.
Wow.
So I just a couple of comments. That there is the site on Acton Road, I think it's CU 252, is actually going to involve some work on Sunny Meadow Farm. It's really to repair a connection that was there years ago, but through age and maybe partly through the work on the farm, that connection has been damaged. So as we know, Sunny Meadow Farm, the land trust holds a CR on that. So one of the conditions will be is that we're going to need the trust approval to do that work. But on the other hand, it will definitely improve the farming operation, because I was speaking to Phil Jones about it, and part of what's happening right now is that there is at least at times water coming out of breaks in the pipe, so it's making the farmland very wet, if not flooded.
David, when that work has to be done, who would speak for the farm?
Who would speak for the farm?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure anyone would. It's town owned.
I know that, but I mean, it's not part of the Agricultural Commission. It's not a separate group. That's the way conservation is responsible for one reservation. There's not a group responsible for Sunny Meadows, right?
Well,
So
no.
somebody's got to
no.
initiate the request for that repair work, that's all I'm saying.
Right, right. But the other thing I was going to say is because it will directly benefit the farm operations, it can be done under an agricultural exemption.
Sure.
So, so I'm trying to think if I need to say anything else. Is
that the stream that flows under Acton Road from Parley's Farm over to Sunny Meadows?
Yeah, if you can call it a stream.
Yeah.
It was obviously, dug by hand, it's obviously
By
man-made.
farmers, John.
Yeah, probably
By farmers, John.
a long time ago. Under the agricultural exemption.
It didn't exist then.
So I think, again, a negative determination.
When is that one scheduled to be done?
So the only work that we have currently scheduled right now would be North Road, as we're trying to get that culvert repair first, as it's part of the Mass Municipal Paving Program, which DOT, we've signed the contract, they're looking to pave.
When that comes up on your list, you would just step out to Acton Road and begin the work?
We have to notify the land trust, and so we that can be pushed back on the list. We don't have a timeline or an order that we're going to be going in outside of North Road being the first one that would be
No, it
looking to
just
get done.
sounds like it's something that should be addressed.
It's going to take, could be up to 30 days or 60 days for a reply, so it's already going to be pushed back a little bit, but it is something that we are hoping to get done this year.
Let
or
us
aiming to
know
get
if you
done.
don't get a response.
Will do.
Yeah, no, they've been responsive, certainly, with Hart Pond, they've been responsive. So, I think this can be the same conditions. I think with one additional, I think here with the work that will need to be done, because there's a couple of stream channels that and drainage swales that are being cleaned out. So I think for those particular cases that the work really is best to do it at low or no flow conditions, which not always, they're not under anyone's control, but presumably in August, that kind of work. The other condition is, and recall that exercising of the Freeman Lake valve is included in this RDA. So I would just include the additional condition that there should be no erosion caused during the testing of the discharge from the valve testing.
And so that is handled by our highway superintendent, highway department, and would give you the 48 hours notice if you wanted to be present while that was, when that was happening.
Yep.
I'd like to see if it works.
Good, all right, well, thanks, David. All right, good, all right, so we have that input from David. We do, it's a public hearing, and again, before we close, yeah.
Look to that side of the table.
I will. Being a public hearing, anybody from the public has any questions or comments before we close the hearing, just raise your hand, let us know. All right, so no public input. We're now ready for a motion to close the hearing.
I
Peter?
move we close the hearing.
Peter on the motion to close the hearing, second.
Second that.
Very good, John. John on the second. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor? Unanimous? Excellent. Good. So we closed the hearing, and now we're looking for a motion for a negative determination with the conditions just listed by our agent.
And I would just say, this would be both a -2 and a -3. Two is for work in an area subject to protection, but it will not alter that area. So this can still be a negative determination.
Very good. So
Well, you
both
have
a
to
negative
pick each
3 and
one
2.
that-
Yeah, you would check both
You'll have to
boxes.
pick each
Taking this
project
one? You better let
that's a
Dave
2
answer.
or a 3?
No,
Or ju-
no,
Just
no.
the whole application?
Right, no,
Yeah.
the entire application.
But listen,
All right, so that would be a -2 and -3. Okay, so we need a motion then?
you want to move, move?
Yeah, so move.
All right, so moved by John and a second.
I thought John wanted to do it.
No, John. No,
Second.
John made the motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, you're second it? Okay, so Peter made the motion? All right, Peter on the motion, second by John. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you so much, Anthony.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. So
Thank
you can
you.
go ahead and schedule the North Road work. I'll get the written paperwork to you in a couple days.
Okay, yeah, so we're looking to do that on Tuesday night, so I'll reach out
okay.
to you on Thursday just to give you the timeline.
Okay.
Carol, we're like,
Summary on the sequence and the prioritization.
Yes, will do.
Good. That was good.
Thank you.
Carl, we're lucky we have beavers at Crooked Spring because it's cleaning the water out.
Oh, you're doing a great job out there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
so this gentleman is Mr. Dylan Archibald. Archibald. So he is here at my request tonight to talk about a drainage issue. So I wonder if we could take him next.
Oh, yeah, let's do that next then. Yes, sir, come on forward to the podium.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Dylan Archambault. I'm a new resident. My company's moving here in town, Dylan and Pete's Ice Cream, so you have a new ice cream man in town.
Oh, good.
I recently purchased the property at 5 Walter Street. Formerly, Bruce Cummins Landscaping was there, I believe, for 30-plus
Where's
years.
That off of Billerica Road? No.
Across the street from the Forum.
Cross street from
Yeah,
Tully
yeah,
Forum.
yeah.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, we're in the ice cream truck business. We have a fleet of ice cream trucks, and basically looking to install a ditch so we can put some receptacles, electrical receptacles, so we can plug our ice cream trucks in overnight, so the ice cream doesn't melt. Been working with Mr. Kuntz here for the past couple of days. He's been very helpful in giving some insight. He suggested I come here tonight and get your blessing to work hand in hand with him, perhaps.
I'll
Okay.
take it. So you see this ditch right here with water in it? On the GIS, this shows as a town wetland. It doesn't show as, it's not a state wetland. So,
Dave, can you locate us? Where's Billerica Road, the Forum, or or Route 3?
if you give me a second, I can.
The forgotten part of Chelmsford.
Do I see
Yeah.
a sheen?
This is Walter Street.
It's down from the Esso station, the Exxon station?
Yeah, there's a mobile station just
That's up on the hill?
Yeah,
You're down
Correct.
in the hollow?
we're down in the
Yeah,
hollow.
down in the
Yeah,
hollow.
yeah,
Where Anthony's Loam used
yeah,
to be.
yeah.
So I'll just bring it up quickly, because then you can see on the
I always wondered why somebody didn't build a hotel in that
What
site.
is the address again?
5 Walters.
5 Walter Street.
Thank you.
I don't
No
know,
solar.
maybe there's not enough land.
I thought Emmanuel owned that now.
No. He owns it.
He owns it now. How many acres you got?
I believe it's about 3/4 of an acre.
Oh, okay, it's not as big as I thought it was.
Well,
There you go.
the other people bought
All right,
that.
this is good. All right, we're zooming in here.
So here it is. You can see that this does show up as some kind of a wetland on this data layer. It doesn't show up on the state data layer. It doesn't look like it goes anywhere, although there does appear to be some kind of a go down to the next, some kind of a head wall here, some kind of a
So David, I mean, this is, as a chair, I mean, this looks like it's, a small type situation. I'm really comfortable with you having kind of looked at it, worked with, the gentleman here. And if you're comfortable with kind of, doing the work,
Yeah.
it seems like I'd be fine with it. And I think
Okay.
many of the commissioners probably feel the same way,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are you gonna sell ice cream from the site or just
No,
trucks?
it's simply, it's going to be our headquarters, our base of operation, and we're a catering company, so primarily we go to businesses, colleges, schools, universities. Been doing the country fair for years.
Good
We do
location.
some special events. We
Right
don't
near the
necessarily
right
do
near the
the
highway,
street
right.
vending. That's how we started, but it's evolved, so,
Great.
Good
yeah.
for you. I'm glad you're
Great,
coming
well,
to town.
Chelmsford, yeah.
yeah, you
Right,
guys will
big
have to come
Chelmsford.
over for a free cone on us.
No, no,
Off the record, strike that.
Can't buy my vote.
You know.
You look like you like maple walnut, I don't know, maybe.
I agree with Chris on what he just said about you, Taylor, David.
So let's just make a quick motion to, basically just listen to our agent on this one, and you'll be
Yeah,
fine.
I'm sure,
know?
I feel like I'll be in good hands, so.
Absolutely,
There's
yeah.
nothing to vote on that.
There's really nothing to
No,
vote
you
on.
don't need a vote. I'll be in touch,
Okay.
Dylan, about
Yeah.
the specifics of how to improve
Right.
this area.
Yeah, I mean, Dig Safe isn't coming till Thursday anyway, so there's no hurry.
Okay, so I'll be in touch shortly.
Okay, appreciate your time, everybody.
Hey,
Take
thanks a
care.
lot,
Thank you
and
very
we'll,
much.
We'll be down to sample the ice cream.
Anytime, I'd love it. Okay, take care. Good night.
All right, a quick one. One came up just recently. There's a town meeting article coming up with some sort of an easement. Could you tell us a little bit about that one, David? I think we need a vote for, to vote on this thing, too.
Sure, and my apologies for not bringing this up sooner. It just sort of slipped through the cracks. Let me see. There are just a couple of figures that I want to bring up, which I think will make it easier to understand. Okay, so it's 2 Shore Drive is the address. Let me open up one other file. Okay. So this is the driveway. This is 2 Shore Drive over here, and this is the driveway that serves it. It actually was put in on conservation land. So as you can see, this is the survey right here. So the driveway comes in off of Shore Drive over conservation land to get to this house. So not sure how that happened. I mean, if you just look at the driveway, it doesn't look awfully old to me. But who knows? I guess it could be decades old. But in any case, it's there. The proposal is similar to a couple of properties that are served with driveways that go over the Warren Pole property. Is to grant the residents of 2 Shore Drive an easement to be able to access the property over the driveway that went on conservation land. And so that's what the town meeting warrant article is asking.
How big is the conservation land parcel?
Hold on a second. Let me go. It's actually fairly big.
I don't have a problem then.
But let me just.
Probably abuts conservation properties too.
Yep.
I show 4 acres.
Yeah.
It's that small. I thought it was. This is.
Well,
this is
it might
every-
be more adjacent to it. Probably is.
Yeah. So, yep, 4 acres.
Okay, 4 acres, yeah.
I
good.
take it there's no other way the homeowner could get to his house either?
Looks like this is like a loop parking lot.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
I think this does have access on Shore Drive.
I think what you said, David, granted easements on Warren Pole properties that were infringing on it.
Yeah, I mean, so the precedent is there, although probably for those properties, it's not, it probably is their only access.
Yes.
Here's a copy of the proposed easement. It says, whereas the town is owner of a large parcel of land located in Chelmsford, described in an order of taking dated November 30th, 1970. Whereas the grantee is the owner of the land with the building there. Whereas a driveway is located on the property which is beneficial to the grantee's property to provide access to and from Shore Drive. Said driveway encroaches on the area shown as drive depicted on the plan. I think one of the unknowns here is whether the driveway was on the property back in 1970 when the town acquired it. So I think in that sense, it's giving the owners the benefit of the doubt.
Who's the owner?
It was recently sold. the owner that I've been corresponding with is Nancy Stevens.
So we need to take a vote, basically, to approve
support
the
it.
easement, yes.
Well,
we have a-
to approve it.
Yeah, and I'm okay with it, too. So if somebody can make a motion then to, on this matter?
So, can I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
We don't have any idea how this, how did it come to our attention?
The new property owner contacted.
Probably the sale, you know what I mean? They had a conveyance, they probably had a diligent closing attorney.
Okay.
Kind of pull the records and go like, oh,
What?
It-
You know,
It's
what's
it's right
going
on the
on.
mortgage survey plan.
Exactly.
So Probably the
like,
lender.
holy smokes.
the lender's
And you don't
attorney.
want to, and you got a problem, and the way to correct it is to get an easement to straighten it out, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I move we support article, what is the warrant article number?
Well, I think you actually have to approve the grant of
Granting the
easement.
easement?
Yeah.
Okay, who are we gonna grant it to,
The owner of
The
two
property
short-
owner there.
without
The grantee.
specifying their name?
Oh, that's in the easement. yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
here's the,
Yeah, they got we got the easement
Donald-
document.
Then you
Donald
can make the
Spencer.
vote, then you can make the motion, Joe.
Well, I could second it. You better speak in the,
Yeah, but you're closer to read the name, because you're like
I can't see
strategically
that.
positioned.
I move we approve the granting of an easement to the property owner designated.
All right, thanks, Dave. So a motion by Dave and a seconded by John.
There, he stepped up now.
All right, here he goes. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Any opposed? Unanimous, sorry.
Let me
Thanks.
say something about this area. So many of the properties up there, nobody knows whether it's town land or conservation land, and we're liable to see other situations like this out of ignorance. We've got to be careful that people don't start using town land, whether it's town or conservation land, as their private property.
well, and I know of one other encroachment up there that's been on my list to pursue. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet, but
I have a question. Is it appropriate to ask at this point?
It depends. What's the question?
I'm trying to understand the process. Don't you need a building permit for a driveway?
no, I don't think so.
No permit for a driveway?
I don't remember, having to get a driveway permit.
well, I think there's a driveway, there's an
Oh,
road opening permit that would be needed to get access off of a town road, which I'm pretty sure Shore Drive is, but who knows when this was done.
Yeah, they're seldom granted on things like that. They just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Years ago.
All right, Mike, good question. All right, so back in discussion. On the agenda, we have a draft conservation restriction. Mr. Agent, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So let me just make sure that, hi, Melissa.
Hi, good evening, members of the board. Thank you very much, David, for bringing this on.
So I can, and Mr. Baranski is here as well from
Yes.
from the applicant side. So I'll just give some brief background on this. So it was actually, I believe, in the planning board's decision approving the development at 255 Princeton Street. I believe the planning board required conveyance of a conservation restriction. It's not actually a full-blown Chapter 184 restriction that would have to go to the state for approval and signed off on by the select board. This is a relatively small parcel of land, 6.75 acres. I don't actually have a plan right at the moment to show, but if you recall, it's basically that large wetland area.
In the front?
Yes. It does have a little bit of upland that could possibly have a trail. Certainly is probably good turtle nesting habitat. And so the commission also, as you recall, issued an order of conditions approving this particular project. In the order of conditions actually referenced the requirement to convey the CR. within a certain amount of time, which has been done. So that condition has been satisfied. So here's the draft that Melissa's office provided me with. I've made a few changes in red. I think the main change I made, and what I'm throwing out to the commission as a proposal, is to manage the property, or require in the CR that the property be managed pursuant to the regulations for wildlife refuges. Even though it is relatively small, I think it makes sense to do it that way, to try and allow for minimal impact. Of course, it's a CR that will have to be monitored. So that's the first thing, and then just the other thing I wanted to talk about. Is that because it's a CR that the commission will hold, that the commission does have a responsibility for annual monitoring.
So how do we do that?
Well, a good question, and I guess what I wanted to ask the applicant is, would the applicant be willing to, provide some funding for the annual monitoring, at least for a certain number of years? So I guess that's a rhetorical question at this point. But so those are the two issues. I think that.
Okay, and then town council's reviewed the document?
I have sent it off to town council for review. Haven't heard back from him yet.
Chris?
Well, I sent it to Paul Haverty, which I assume he'll forward it to Chris. So
Yes, and I touched base with them earlier today, David, and I know Chris is looking at it, so I would expect something from him later this week.
Okay.
And just to your points, we have no objection to these modifications, and we can talk to you offline about what he'd be looking for a cost related to monitoring.
Okay.
But we're happy to wait, for town council's comments back, but we had no issues with yours.
Okay. What I would suggest in terms of the annual monitoring is that the commission hire a consultant to do that. And I can, I don't know if we should mention any names right at this point, but I can, there is someone that the commission we've talked to about these sorts of things. I can get an estimate, a rough estimate, if that's what you'd like, Melissa. I think,
Yes, that'd be great, and then we can talk about it, because I know we'll be back to the commission. I'm sure that Chris or Paul will have some changes that we'll have to discuss with the commission prior to execution, so we can come back with that suggestion when we get it from council and when you get your quote.
Okay.
Do we need to do a baseline document?
Yeah, that should probably be done as well. So that's a good point, Carl. So I can get an estimate, a cost estimate for the baseline report as well, which actually will have to be done sooner rather than later.
You know what, Dave, we've gone through every piece of this property, including this piece, so I'm sure that our engineers and wetland scientists could prepare a baseline on your behalf. So let me just touch base with them before you do anything like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's anything out there that hasn't been reviewed. So we may be able to prepare that study without having a third party come in.
Okay.
All right, good, and I know the commission, we remember this site well. We had the extensive site walk all around that area. I think, Peter, you weren't on the commission at that point, and John, I'm not sure if you had joined it. You were there, too. We had that, I remember you were there in your shorts for that.
We almost lost poor Dave.
But Dave, Dave went down at one point, but he bounced back up.
Right, it's true.
Very
One
resilient.
of us went around the whole pond.
One of us encircled.
you. That's right, yeah.
Yes, that was you, actually, yes.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
that's right.
He wanted to bring that present.
So we were out there. We really marched around that site pretty extensively.
Nice spot.
So it's a great spot.
So
a
what
great
do you think
spot.
about having it be managed as a wildlife refuge?
I like that idea.
Yeah,
Well,
I think so. all right.
But I'd like to read through the CR.
We gotta read through
Having
the
got a little
document.
experience with CRs now.
You have, yeah.
Time, guys.
Yeah.
The two parties involved are the applicant and the town. There's been a number of discussions over the last couple of years as to what that area in front of the apartments is gonna be used for. I take it the parties have come to some agreement, because this is the first I've heard of it as a wildlife refuge. It has been At one time, there was gonna be walkways around it, so people could walk around it and have access to it. I think there was a discussion about whether it should be available to the whole town, and I think the conclusion was it should not. Who came to the conclusion that the best use for this land was a wildlife refuge?
That was mine. That's my proposal.
I think the applicant should buy into it, and I think the community development should buy. The two people who are proposing this project should, right?
Well, I think I heard Melissa just say that that's acceptable to the applicant.
Okay, now, the other thing is,
I looked at David, I looked at the exhibit that you sent over, and most of those things are items that we've agreed to, or we generally would agree to as part of a conservation restriction anyway. No open alcohol, no open fires, no trails unless we come to you. You'll be the holder of the CR anyway. Hunting and trapping without permission of the conscom. I mean, these are general provisions that we would cover in a conservation restriction in any case. But you and I can certainly have a conversation with Evan offline just to make sure that we've, dotted all our i's and crossed all our t's, as the commission's pointing out.
okay, for the benefit of the rest of you on the commission, the prohibited acts and the permitted acts in this document are the ones you're probably gonna see when you review the conservation restriction for Warren Pole.
Yes.
And hiring a consultant means they'll go through the 9 prohibited acts and say, the applicant, Trammell Crow, did not do any of these things in the last year. Or if they did, they will document what they did wrong. Same thing on permitted. They will probably more than once a year, they will have to take a look at the site and say, are they doing, when they do something, is it what's permitted by the document? So that's why I think David is suggesting a consultant. We've got a number of conservation restrictions in town, of which none of them do a very good job of, after the fact, looking at what you can and can't do. And what would the net result of this would probably just be, hopefully, a one-page document once a year that gets filed with us saying, based on this restriction, the applicant has not done any of the prohibited acts, and anything they have done is consistent with the permitted acts.
And it's compared to the baseline.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
there's nothing, no deviations from the baseline that aren't.
I think that
permitted.
the most difficult part of this being a wildlife refuge and with the CRs, people are going to wander around that site. And the question is, what, if any, damage do they do to the site? There aren't going to be any trails in there, but I bet you 5 years from now, you'll see trails, right? And so we just have to be careful that it doesn't get such substantial public use that it defeats the purpose of a wildlife refuge.
Well, and trail creation,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything in trail creation in the draft right now, Melissa, is there?
No.
So that might be something that commission members want to consider adding in. And again, there certainly are there are examples from other CRs.
But I do think that, I like this approach. I know we had a number of meetings on this whole project. I remember being down in front of the selectmen a couple of times when we talked about it. I like the idea of the wildlife refuge. And, I think consensus was that we didn't want it to become like a playground or something like that. We wanted kind of a passive wildlife refuge. And there's going to be an effort to clean up some of the invasives that we saw as we all experienced, the invasives, the poison ivy and the bittersweet and all the vines and all that stuff. So there's improvement for that, but I think it's going to be good. So, and I like the idea too of this conservation restriction being kind of held by the commission here. It's a little bit more simple. We don't have to go through that years-long process at the state that we have to do for, larger properties, and we get to have the oversight instead of maybe a land trust. So I think it's going to be good.
There's nothing in this proposed restriction that allows trails.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just
So
so everyone
that's,
understands that.
and I don't know whether you feel that maybe that's the most consistent with the wildlife refuge. There's nothing in the
Well,
wildlife
I
refuge
think when we,
regulations that
yeah,
prohibits trails.
when we adopted them for the 2 other sites, the one on River Neck Road
Yeah.
and wherever the other
The
one was.
Bobby Greenwood, yeah.
Well, we recognize that neighbors are going to create trails.
Yeah.
It's just that there's not a conscious effort on the part of people to create trails.
But I don't know, maybe a one trail would be acceptable to the commission. So I
think I would leave it the way it is and see what happens.
Let nature happen.
Yeah, I need to take it to court.
Yeah. So I guess we get an overview today, kind of the restriction right. We're gonna have to come back at a further time. We got town council again over. Dave, we got your input. Carl and Dave have worked a lot of conservation restrictions in the past months or so. So we'll get some more input, get that feedback back. Council's gonna look at it from her perspective. And we'll just, do we need a date certain to come back again, or are we just gonna bring it back when we're ready to talk?
Well, I think strictly speaking, the order of conditions says, and I'll go back and review it, but my recollection is the order of conditions says, since I wrote it, that the conservation restriction shall be approved and recorded prior to the issuance of the first occupancy permit.
Yeah, so we have time.
Good time. Good. Okay, good. Right, so I don't think, no action needed today then. All right, very good. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you very much, members of the commission. David, I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right.
Time out, I gotta,
Time out?
yeah.
All right, let's take a 3-minute break here, folks. All right? So, break for everybody. Back to order again after our brief recess. Thank you, everyone. So back, let's see, back on discussion area, we have an item here, letter of support for low-impact development guidelines, MVP grant application. Peter, you were going to tell us something about
Yes,
this
yeah.
more? So you got the floor.
Yeah, so let me try to make this simple, and if there's questions, we can spend a little bit more time. So I've been working with the town DPW and community development to put together a proposal for a MVP grant, which. I don't
What
know if
is
you-
that? Yeah, what is that?
So basically, part of the state's climate action programs, they've established a program called the Municipal Vulnerability Program.
Municipal
Which is-
vulnerability preparedness.
Preparedness, thank you. Which, Chelmsford's taken advantage of several projects in the past to do an overall assessment of the vulnerabilities of the town as the climate changes, basically. And of course, in fairness, I mean, if we were a coastal town on the ocean, that would be a much bigger impact than in our town. But nonetheless, we're eligible for grant funding to take a look at making our town more resilient, is the word, to future climate changes. So the MVP is a major program with annual grants, and the grant for this year is coming up, and they're due May 5th. So a couple of us have been working on a application for funding, which would be for an outside consultant to do the legwork, to develop a sustainable design manual, we're calling it, of sustainability features that can be used by the town in multiple places. So Christine Clancy at DPW is part of this team putting this together, and she's got a number of ideas on climate-related funding that would benefit her programs. The planning board has some interest in understanding sustainability a little bit better, and I understand from some of the planning board contacts that there's a feeling anyway in some quarters that a lot of the developers and engineers that come before town with things like stormwater plans or site plans aren't really incorporating some of the more modern, sustainability features. I mean, we're talking about vegetation, shrubs and trees, my favorite topic, stormwater systems that truly protect the wetlands. It's a general term called low-impact development is the term of art used by a lot of the engineers that design these things. And then finally, well, not finally, but also in chats I've had with you, Dave Coons, and a little bit Carl, I think this commission probably could use some further guidelines on things that we could consider. I'm not saying have to use, but consider for orders of conditions. What kind of trees are appropriate for the changing climate, for example, the whole vegetation plans. It goes on and on. There's a whole big laundry list of sustainable design elements. So I can tell you more about the study, but we have a draft scope of work that should be ready Friday, if anyone wants to really lift up the hood. One of the key elements in winning these things, so there's a whole strategy of how you get enough points to win one. I think last year, I looked it up, about 50% of all grants put in by Massachusetts communities were awarded last year. I don't know if that's a fair win probability for this one, but I'm going with that. And so what I'm asking the commission for is, well, number one is to participate in this project. It would be roughly a 9-month project. Dovetails nicely with what some of us are working on, the open space plan update and the master plan implementation. I don't want to get into all those details, but this would basically follow that effort and come up with guidelines for the town. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and I'm happy to dive in. But the simple thing is that it improves your win probability if a commitment letters are submitted with the proposal.
What type of commitment? A financial commitment?
No, and I wrote one. I sent you a draft of
I
it.
think it's more of a support letter.
Yeah, and I'll just.
Support letter,
Yeah,
okay.
and so we're seeking these, we'll get one from DPW, Planning Board, this commission, the Tree Committee, the Clean Energy Committee. It just strengthens the
Sure.
proposal. So I'm not gonna read this letter that we drafted, but, these are the kinds of letters that, score a lot of points. So it's from the commission. Chris, I haven't asked you, I assume you or Carl or Dave or, I don't know, somebody signs it on behalf of the commission, but it simply says, I'm writing this to provide support on behalf of the Conservation Commission for this project. The commission works on many projects that offer opportunities for improving Chelmsford resilience to flooding, drought, urban heat island effects, as well as improvements to habitat and biodiversity. issues associated with climate. And we can debate the language. The language doesn't matter if you wanted to change it. And then it simply says, we very much look forward to helping create a pragmatic manual focused on low-impact development. That's kind of the buzzword. Blah, 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 blah. And then it goes on to say, how we can use it with our regulatory mission. Another paragraph, this is in addition to our regulatory mission, we manage 1,000 acres of open space in Chelmsford, which includes significant lands that, might benefit from some of these guidelines. So words a little bit different. Here's the key. There's no real commitment. We anticipate our staff, I don't know if staff is the right word, but it's Carl, sorry, Carl, I haven't asked you, but I will. It's David Coons and I have talked about contributing, so that's who the staff is. And anyone that wants to get involved. But basically, we're committing to providing input to the design standards and considering how to integrate these design guidelines into our routine site plan approvals. I mean, it doesn't really say too much, other than we'll participate in the study
Okay.
along with DPW and the Clean Energy Committee, the Tree Committee.
All right, well, let's just see
So
if the commission.
we can play with the language, and I don't know if this is something we vote on or not.
It
but-
sounds pretty good. Let's just see if the commission, any of the commissioners have any questions. Is there anybody concerned about this? I mean, it seems like, we're not making any financial commitments, where the time is gonna be at discretion, say, of, Peter, our agent. David, you don't have any concerns with this, do you?
No, I just a couple of general comments. Sort of the way support letters are written in these sort of situations. They're either signed, usually either by the chair or by the agent. I've certainly written many support letters on behalf of conservation commissions for grant applications. So I'm certainly happy to put my signature on this. I think I probably revise the wording to some extent, again, based on my experience with these applications. So I'm certainly happy to
You're supportive
work
of that,
on
good.
that.
Good, that'd be good. So, I mean, unless somebody's got some questions or concerns here, I say we go forward with this,
Can we make it a vote, so it
Yeah,
sounds?
why not? Why don't you so we got a motion for Peter to support this and have a letter drafted up that's similar to this. I can sign it, or I'm fine with having our agent sign it and make, a few tweaks here.
I think it's good to have the chair and the agent.
We'll both sign it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
like
even
that.
better. I like that. So we can both sign it, we tweak it. So we got a motion by Peter. Someone make a second on that? John on the second. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And nobody opposed, so unanimous, so thanks.
So Peter, you need this by April 30th?
A little bit before, if possible.
Okay. What about if a final draft was, the commission could see at the April 25th meeting?
Sure.
Would that work? Would the chairman work on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can tweak it, or you can dictate it to me, or whatever.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make some revisions and run them by you.
Yeah, and once you get like a final draft, let me see it too before I sign it.
Sure.
Yes.
I can, we'll talk about it at the 25th, right? I can sign electronically if necessary, or physically.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Oh, good, okay, great. All right, so that's that item. Land management, moving on to land management. Carl?
So, as we talked about the CR a little bit already, but we're close, still close.
I think we're
not
making
there.
progress.
Yeah, we're almost there. Dave made some change. We had a call, actually, we met in here last week, and we made one more round of changes. Dave just put them together. I gotta read through it, but I think we're good. It'll go to town council, and then,
Alpin's pushing us finally.
yeah, I know.
First time.
It's good.
Somebody must be pushing him.
So that's going well. The mosquito treatment just came up. So we have the Warren and Pohl families have had an agreement for years with the Central Mass Mosquito Project, which is a state organization. I guess I'm not exactly sure what their government structure is, but it's a group that does aerial mosquito application of it's called BTI. They've been doing this for years and years and years in Chelmsford, Billerica, and Boxborough. Those were the 3 aerial towns. And they stage it at the Warren Pole Farm. They've been staging it there for years. So what happens is a truck comes in, puts the pallets of this material onto the ground. A helicopter comes in and picks up the material, goes out and distributes it into ponds around Chelmsford and Billerica, I think. Probably on that. I don't know if they go down to all 3 towns from that spot, and then come back and get more and go distribute it, and then they come back. So what's happening is they're gonna, they gotta move the rocks that are at the site, because the rocks keep trucks from going out onto the property, but the rocks have to be moved because they put the pallet of material just beyond the kiosk, which they've been doing for years. I know right where it goes. And they will do that in the next week or so, and then the mosquito.
Did they ask your permission to do it?
We kind of gave it to them last year.
And this year, did they ask your permission?
They didn't ask
to do it?
specifically, no.
So who told them they could go on our site and start moving stuff around?
They've been working through David and through the health,
He's shaking his head.
health,
No,
This letter reads as if it was the Board of Health that told him to do it, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Board of Health approved it, and then Christine said, told him DPW will move the boulders, and I didn't hear about it until today.
Until today,
So-
right,
So
right.
I certainly would have let the commission know.
Yeah, I
while ago.
thought that they would have, like, asked us about it or something until
Should
it
have.
came up today.
Not
Yeah,
would have,
yeah,
but
although-
should have.
But we did tell them last year that we were giving them the approval to do
We
it.
dealt directly with the Mosquito Control Board. Nobody between us and them, and we just reiterated when we took over Warren Pole what had been a historical relationship between them and the Warrens and the Poles. We thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, again, it's, I know it's a technicality, is it's strictly speaking, though, the commission does not have care, custody, and control of that land quite yet. So,
Correct.
so I mean, if strictly speaking,
That
they
is a
didn't have to talk to
technicality.
us.
A mere
But they
technicality.
didn't really ask anyone other than.
My
the
biggest
health
problem,
department.
Carl, is that some other town department is telling somebody what they can do on land that we're supposed to be responsible for.
I agree.
I think that's wrong. It's bad form, that's all. I'm not saying we probably would have done it.
Yeah, I think, so from my point of view, I think for this year, I'm okay with it. I'm not sure I want to keep doing this on this site. It's a public conservation reservation, and we're going to have a helicopter landing there. We have to close off a good
Sure.
part of it. And
Sure.
to me, that's like, I'm not sure that's, when it was an empty,
No, but we have to
an
give
empty
them.
site,
Right, we should
that was
start,
fine.
we
but-
should start discussions now, because they may
For
have to
next year.
find another location, right?
Yeah, I don't want to tell them now that they have to change somewhere next week. I'm okay
Yeah,
with that.
So can I add a thought? We don't need to discuss this right now, but I would be less interested in moving rocks and more interested in, well, I know what they're spraying in the spring, but the state has quite a history in recent times of spraying more nasty pesticides.
Yeah, this isn't
Yeah,
spray.
this isn't spray.
This is the
This is a
BTI
larvicide.
pellets.
Seeds.
No, I understand that, but what I'm getting at is I'd be more interested in understanding if later in the summer, there was a West Nile outbreak that the boards of health and mosquito control people were concerned about, and they started spraying Anvil or one of the other
Dave, do they have
not
to
so nice
submit an
chemicals.
NOI when they do it? David?
No, that's exempt. Mosquito control is exempt.
Yeah, I
We
think they-
historically
Yep.
historically, somebody has asked them what was the material they were putting down, and we should continue to do that.
Okay.
And we're not gonna give them carte blanche.
Right.
Well, if the consensus among the commission members is ask them to find another location from which to launch the helicopters, I think that probably should be the first thing.
That would be my recommendation for next year, because that becomes, it's not a question of should they be doing this at all, it's just
Where does
from
the
our point of view, I
Where does the
don't think,
helicopter land?
it lands just beyond the kiosk,
Okay.
right on this end of that field.
is there any other place on the site they could land?
I don't think they should be coming to that site.
Carl's biggest concern is mine, which is that we got helicopters landing when the public's using it.
Yep.
We'd have to close Warren Pole
Well, and-
for probably 3 days.
And
I
Mike,
think they're only there a day.
No, but we'd have to
but they
close
dropped
it.
the material there for a couple days.
Yeah, and we'd have
in
to close it
stages.
before they do their work and after they do their work.
And the other thing is that closing it is hard because people access
Right.
that site from all over.
Right, the
All the
neighborhoods and
neighbors come
everything,
in through the side non-entrances.
which they have done historically.
Yeah, and so when we say we've closed it by the gate, it's like, well, that only stops half the people.
Remember, it was private responsibility before this
Yeah,
year.
exactly. That's my concern, so.
So how do you want to approach that conversation? Do you want me to, say, bring that up with Paul?
Uh,
I don't know that Paul's had anything to do with it.
yeah, I don't.
I think it was between the mosquito control board and the and the Warren family.
Well, yeah, but.
I mean, they notified the town what they
Well,
were
we
doing.
don't-
But it
We
came
don't
to,
technically
it came
own the
to us
property
last
yet.
year. It
But
came
we
to
don't
us
technically
last
own the
year,
property, yeah.
and we, on behalf of,
The
I
hell
guess,
are we
the
writing
select board or
conservation
Paul, we,
restrictions for?
I know.
If we technically don't own the property, why the heck are we spending all of our time in a CR, which says Conservation
because we
Commission
were
in it?
asked to by the select board.
But that's a waste, if it doesn't, it says Conservation Commission in it. I think we should notify the mosquito control board. We would like to sit down and discuss with them their finding another site in Chelmsford for the following reasons. Boom, 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 just list what the reasons are. And give them enough time to make a good
Well, I think we-
relocation.
I think we should run it through.
Violent agreement.
I think we should run it through the town manager's office, though. Because of
The Board of Health is
technicalities.
certainly going to want to be involved in the
Yeah.
conversation, so.
Yeah.
Bureaucracy.
That's fine. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm saying it shouldn't be from our site. So.
That's
So-
right.
So
Find
so
another
you want
site.
me to start then?
Sure.
And I would urge a conversation about what they're spraying.
Okay.
I mean, I understand, I mean,
That's the Board of Health.
Yeah, but they're not spraying.
Dropping.
Yeah,
Drop
this is larvicide.
Carl's right. All we're doing is we're suggesting, and if it's to Paul, it's to Paul first, that site is no longer appropriate for them staging their work because the site is officially open to the public now, independent of who's responsible for the site.
Exactly.
I think that's well said,
Well said.
Dave. Well said.
That was my point.
All right. What else we got?
Just one other thing on Warren Poles. I haven't heard anything about the sign since I sent the request for a proposal to.
I thought Billy was working on it.
So I
not here.
can tell you from visiting the new sign place that it will be, I'm convinced it'll be done, but it won't be fast. Right? They said, oh, we're into May or June. And
okay.
I don't know that they do internet.
No.
You might try, phone call. And if you want to go visit, go with Bill. Don't go by yourself.
Yeah.
Is that dangerous?
Well,
No, but-
You might end up in a
it's
quarry.
really something to go up there. This is up the
It's-
quarry. It's amazing when you drive up there.
It's,
It's really something I'd never seen up there. It's
You'll have some sympathy for some of the truck traffic the neighbors are concerned about.
totally. But
Well, maybe
I thought I was in
I'll pass on
Montana. I was like, wow.
But we need a cost estimate. So.
Yep.
more like deep into Vermont.
Yeah.
DPW is handling it, right,
Well,
Carl?
I
Or are you handling it?
no.
DPW
They
's
have
not.
my name and David's name.
And do we have a cost, like a
No.
budget, an
No,
estimate?
they don't.
But
they haven't-
maybe if he can't do it, send it over email. I'll give him a call.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'd say is, Bill would love a reason to go visit. So call,
Okay.
if you call Bill,
I'll go through.
I
Bill.
mean that in every positive way.
Okay.
It's a great place to
It
visit.
is.
It really is.
It's,
All right, good.
the only other thing is on the land management, we had a great Concom walk on the 1st of April at Crooked Spring. And, thanks to everybody that was able to make it. That was a good walk. We saw the beaver dam that was there, and we saw the 2 outflows that we talked about tonight, actually, and a couple other things. the top of my head, I don't remember. The next one would be May 6th, which is a Saturday, May 6th. I would like to visit Russell Mill unless someone has another place they'd prefer, but we haven't been there in quite a while. And given that that's got a lot of activity with the soccer, the mountain biking, the conservation area in the front, the parking area, I think there's a lot to cover there. So we won't walk the whole site because there are a lot of mountain bike trails there. We won't do that, but we can certainly walk along the brook.
That's a Saturday at 9.
Saturday at 9 o'clock, yeah.
The pond.
The pond, yeah.
Very good.
And
No, go ahead, Carl. I just had one other quick thing.
the other thing is just not land management related, but just thanks all for hopefully agreeing to show up on May 2nd when we have our working meeting session on the open space part of the, as Peter was saying earlier, the master plan and the open space stuff.
Do we have
So-
a room? Is it going to be this room?
I'll reserve this room, yeah. I mean, it won't need to be televised, I mean, just a working session. But
So, sorry to take another Tuesday out of your, especially it'll be the week after we have town meeting. so
Town meeting. We could be
We're-
knocked down and beat up after town
we'll be-
meeting.
You and I will be meetinged out, but yeah, so that's all I had.
Okay, just one other quick thing is, someone contacted me with a request to do some mineral extraction at the lime quarry, which means he just wants to go there with a little pick, and, you know, go in the area where the old mine used to be, see what he can find. I guess there are some specific minerals that only or mainly occur in lime quarries, and he's just hoping to get permission to be able to remove a little bit.
Purpose? What's he gonna do with it?
I think probably just collect it, just keep it. I can verify that, but.
You want some limit on how much whacking?
Yeah, I
I thought we were against that.
Yeah, in general, we don't allow removal of any material. I certainly appreciate that he asked, because he could have easily done it without asking.
If he wants to develop some geological report,
I was
that's
gonna
a,
say, R&D,
that's a good idea.
yeah.
Right. Tell them he can have 4 whacks for each
Honestly,
plaque.
you have to be very restricted in scope and time and effort, and it might be better if you were actually there looking over his shoulder, just kind of like observing it, but we just don't want something like to get out of control.
Well, I'll ask him just how much material he intends on collecting. I mean, is it just a little pouch like that, or is it?
Yeah.
If it's really like if it's really small, I mean, I would defer to your judgment, but something we generally discourage, we don't want to have a lot of people showing up, and then I guess, is he going to be publishing his findings in some sort of, scientific journal, and is that gonna,
Is he just collecting it and sticking it on his shelf, or?
Yeah, so I would say,
Yeah.
we're just a little leery of it.
Okay. Well, I will get back to him and express the
Yeah.
commission's reservation, see if I can get
Exactly,
some more details that
Yeah.
the commission might be a little more comfortable with.
yeah,
So, okay.
all right, good.
Glad I asked.
He asked permission.
At least he asked
Yeah,
permission,
yeah,
that's
he
right.
did.
You get him points for that.
He gets points for
A
that.
lot of points
Yeah,
for that.
I'll mention that.
Yeah, because most people don't ask permission.
I know, they ask forgiveness,
Do what they want to do.
yeah.
If they're caught.
People in Pond Street.
So so that's our land management update, nothing more on land management. Agents report, what's this about, David? Vernal-
Well, we recall we talked about that last meeting, about the Luna's offer to
Yeah,
buy in. The commission's good contribution would be to pay for an invertebrate survey,
Sure,
but I haven't heard back from OSPO yet with a
all right, so
proposal.
we'll track it then.
We'll table that.
Did
All
I
right.
see an email, though, that he did find?
Pohl's
pool?
Mr. Pohl's pool, yeah, that they found
Okay.
egg masses. So I've also asked him for a cost estimate for that.
Okay.
So I'll probably be back with
Okay.
next meeting with that.
David, what parcels did they want to look at?
The Lunas?
Yeah,
It's the River Meadow Brook
just that?
reservation.
Okay.
Yeah, just the pools. I guess they found only one obligate pool, which means that, the requisite amphibians are breeding in it. That's the big pool that National Grid trashed.
Yeah, that's really
Well,
good.
that's,
So,
if it's still surviving, that's a good sign.
It's good that they're resilient.
yeah, so that,
Resilience.
so,
Billions.
Until the next time.
Can put a flag up around it or something.
I've tried talking to National Grid, but we'll see. If
All right.
there's a certified vernal pool right there, hopefully that'll
Good,
pull it out a little bit.
good. And then we have our January 24th minutes that we have here that everyone's had a chance to work through and look at.
Can I ask Dave a couple questions on old business? Anything on the lumber yet?
That hearing will be on the 25th.
And, good, well, thank you.
How about the oil truck sign?
That was the other one.
I stopped by there, and there was no one there. They have moved a couple of them. I don't
Out
know if
back,
Yeah.
so you
although-
can't see 'em.
Although I think one has been entirely removed, so I need to write them a letter. I just haven't had a chance to do that, but I will definitely make that a priority.
We still don't know who the oil company is, right?
Right.
Nobody recognizes the name on the truck.
And why the truck should be there. That the gentleman across the street and a little further down, you notice that those wetlands have been flagged.
Oh,
This-
okay.
So
Mr. St. John?
yeah, so I expect that
Nice.
we'll be getting an RDA on that shortly.
Good.
It's
And
just such a scary thing that a valve can open up mysteriously at nighttime and.
yeah, I agree. And it looks like they're just using that site for storage. If you look inside the building, it's a mess. It looks like it's being renovated. But I'll definitely make that a high priority.
Thank you.
Good. All right, and we also have these January 24th minutes here. Any questions before we vote on the minutes?
Yeah, I have on the 24th, under the acquisition of Wilson Lane,
Yeah.
it says the assessed value of the property is now 33,000, it was 28. That difference in value is legal fees, it's not the price of the land? Mr.
You mean the amount that's in, that will be
Mr.
in?
Cohen at the selectmen's meeting said the land was being purchased for the assessed value, and there was a $5,000 requirement for
Right.
legal fees. So just make sure that the price of the land hasn't gone up.
Yes, it has that, well,
It's not the land.
the assessed value actually went up, but we're getting it at last year's assessed
Oh,
value.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Actually, I would say that the minutes are accurate.
But isn't there an amount in the warrant article that's,
It's for the
33.
28 plus legal fees, which would,
Right.
I think the warrant article's 34 or 35,
Right.
something like that.
I heard 33 on Monday night.
33, okay, yeah.
So I think we just need to clarify the legal fee part of it then. Okay?
Run that by me again?
You could say land acquisition and legal fees is $33,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, anything else on the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion by Dave to approve, seconded by Mark. Any comments? All those in favor? Aye. Unanimous, all right, so the minutes are good. Do we have a motion to adjourn? John? John with a motion to adjourn and seconded by Peter. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, these guys are a team down here.
David, did you
Thank
ever
you, ladies and
find-
gentlemen. This meeting is ended. Good night.